I'm 31, and my fiancé is 32. We had been together for 5 years when everything came apart in a courthouse parking lot. His name is Dorian. He had worked at the same logistics software company for 12 years. He was the kind of employee managers love to describe with words like reliable, essential, and irreplaceable. He covered holidays. He stayed late without complaining. He fixed problems no one else wanted to touch. 3 weeks before our wedding, they gave him a plaque for outstanding service during a major outage. On the morning of our ceremony, they fired him by email. We were supposed to do a simple courthouse wedding, 2 witnesses, a late lunch, a family dinner that weekend, nothing extravagant. That was very us, or maybe more accurately, very me. I plan, I organize. I keep lists in my phone and backup lists in a notebook. Dorian is gentler, softer, more passive. For years, I told myself that was fine, because not every relationship needs 2 planners. At 8:12 that morning, while I was checking my lipstick in the mirror, he looked at his phone and said, "That's strange." He had received an HR email. His position had been eliminated effective immediately. His system access had already been revoked. Any questions could be directed to a generic inbox. That was it. 12 years reduced to corporate paste. I started crying before he did. He just stared at the screen and then said, "We should probably still go in. The appointment is non-refundable." That sentence hit me harder than the email, not because it was cruel, because it told me, all at once, how our relationship had always worked. A disaster would happen. He would go numb, and I would become the functioning one. We still got married. I wish I could say I stopped everything right there, but real life is uglier and more confusing than the clean versions people imagine. We stood in a gray hallway that smelled like old paper. Our witnesses smiled too hard. The clerk rushed through the vows. We signed the papers. We took 2 bad photos. Then, we walked back outside, legally married, with his termination email still open on his phone. If the story ended there, this would just be about a company using a good worker up and discarding him. That part is true. He gave them years. They gave him automation language and a locked account. But the layoff didn't create a problem in our relationship. It exposed one. Last year, I got pregnant unexpectedly. We had talked about children in the vague way couples do when they are more in love with the future than prepared for it. Not now, we said. Maybe later. Maybe when we felt stable. But stable was one of those words Dorian loved, because it meant he never had to define anything. When I told him about the positive test, he went quiet. Then he said, "Whatever you decide, I'll support it." At the time, I tried to hear that as kindness. Later, I understood it was also distance. No opinion, no plan, no reaching for me. Just a careful sentence dropped in the middle of a life-changing moment. 2 days later, I started bleeding. The pregnancy ended before I had even figured out what I wanted. I was relieved, ashamed of being relieved, devastated, confused. It felt like grief with no stable shape. 3 nights later, while I was still moving through the apartment like my body belonged to someone else, Dorian tried to initiate sex. When I pulled away and asked how he could even think about that, he said, "I thought maybe being close would make you feel normal again." That was the first moment I understood how alone I could feel standing next to him. He apologized. I stayed, and I stayed for the same reason a lot of people stay in relationships that quietly hollow them out, because nothing looked dramatic enough from the outside. He wasn't mean. He wasn't cheating. He wasn't dangerous. He was just passive in a way that left me carrying every hard thing. That had been our pattern for years. I planned birthdays. He said, "I'm good with whatever." I arranged holidays. He forgot to book anything. I bought thoughtful gifts. He asked me what he should get his own mother. I tracked bills, appointments, deadlines, family events, repairs, and groceries. He thanked me constantly. He told everyone I was amazing. But appreciation is not the same as support. Sometimes it is just admiration for how much work you do, so someone else never has to notice it. After the courthouse wedding, I did what I always do in a crisis. I took over. I updated his resume. I emailed a friend in recruiting. I canceled the dinner reservation. I told our families we needed privacy. I packed away the plaque his company had given him because he couldn't stand looking at it. For 2 days, I moved like a machine. On the second night, around 1 in the morning, I was sitting on the kitchen floor editing his resume while he slept in the bedroom. And suddenly I realized the image was not unusual. It was our relationship in a single frame. He shut down. I stepped up. Then both of us pretended that was love. The next morning, he came into the kitchen and said, "Thanks for handling everything. I don't know what I'd do without you." He meant it affectionately. That is what made it hurt. Because everything should not have been mine to handle. And "without you" did not sound romantic in that moment. It sounded infrastructural. Like I was less a wife than a system he depended on. So I asked him, "What exactly do you think you're carrying right now?" He looked stunned. He said he was trying his best. He said he was in shock. He said this week had been brutal. All of that was true. And still I heard myself say, this week didn't create the pattern. It just made it impossible for me to ignore it. He cried then, real tears, and immediately I felt the old reflex rise in me, the urge to comfort him, to soften my own pain so he would not have to feel too much of his. I asked him why I was always the planner, why every emotional conversation somehow became my job to lead, why, when I lost that pregnancy, he treated my pain like something to be managed instead of shared. Why, when he got fired on our wedding day, his instinct was not to ask what I needed or whether we should stop, but to keep following the schedule because we had already paid for the appointment. He did not have a real answer, only fragments. He was scared. He avoids things. He thought I liked being in charge because I was good at it. Being competent is not the same as volunteering to carry everything forever. Competence is not consent. He said he loved me. I believe that he does. But I also think he had mistaken love for loyalty, and loyalty for enough. He stayed. He did not betray me. He was not cruel on purpose. But love cannot be built only from the harms someone avoids. It also has to include what they are willing to actively carry with you. 3 days later, I moved into my sister's guest room. Yes, legally, that means I got married on Tuesday and moved out by Saturday. Our families are confused. Some of them think I abandoned him at the worst possible moment. But people only count visible crises. They don't count the years of invisible imbalance before them. I am furious at his company. I still think what they did was wrong. I hope he finds better work. And I hope I learn that loving someone who needs me is not automatically the same as being loved well. He is asking for counseling now. He is promising change. I have not made a final decision yet. What I do know is this. Why did I need it to become unbearable before I believed my loneliness counted? I can grieve his job. I can grieve the pregnancy. I can grieve the marriage I thought I was entering. I'm just tired of grieving things while still standing inside the structure that broke them. This concludes today's story. Thank you for listening. If you enjoyed it, consider subscribing to support our work.